my sort of experience in business that happened a long while ago. My experience in the business world came about because, well, I'd been a coach and I'd worked at the very highest level as a coach in sport, and also I'd worked in therapy too, so I had a long journey in that area. But my experience came about quite interestingly in business. I kind of fell into it. I had a client of mine, and he was a really talented sports person, and his dad took him to me to do sessions, and basically I sort of worked with him, and he'd gone on to achieve a lot, even beyond his dad being probably the most biased person in the world at his son's ability. Was quite amazed of the impact I had, and he said, well, if you can do that well with my son, I want to bring you in to do some work with my staff, my team. And I did, just that. I went in and I started working with his team. But the irony was, this is a long time ago, by the way, I said, what do you want to improve? And he goes to me, I need to improve these sort of the KPIs. Now, I didn't know in my infinite wisdom what a KPI, I know what they are now, I didn't know then, a key performance indicator. So I took them home and studied it really rigorously, like you do, like I do. And I sort of thought to myself the next day, in psychology we have a term called external, internal attribution. So external attribution and internal, and I thought they're very external attribution. They're a non-controllable element. So if you're trying to motivate someone or if you're trying to people are going to feel pressured if they can't control a variable and they're placed under pressure to achieve that. Now, I'm not saying before the sales managers in the group say, well, you do need them, like you need a league table in sport, in golf, to measure where you are. The only issue is if you motivate people against them, what do you think might happen?
They'll fail, I believe.
And there's pressure on them because it's an uncontrollable variable. Someone can't control whether you buy or not. You can't control, you can influence. So I went home and studied and thought, okay, I thought of a new way of sort of doing things, and I sort of studied rigorously all my experience in therapy, in coaching, in all the modalities I've studied over a long time. I looked at things like the 5-factor model, which is a science-based model in psychology, like, traits and so on and so forth. Well, okay, I had an idea. I thought, well, people who are high in agreeableness and people who are low and in that area, people who are extroverting. I looked at all that, and I looked at various things from a mindfulness point of view about mental state and so on and so forth. So I went back the next day and I said, okay, I've got an idea. Why don't we focus on the HPI? Now, you won't find it in Google, by the way, if you start Googling. It's not really my invention, but it's probably been around for a long time. But I thought the human performance indicator. I said, control the controllables. If you've got the best product in the world, okay, you control the controllables. Now, we all have bad days at work. We all have moments that are pivotal. But the bottom line, I thought, well, let's focus on giving them techniques to control the controllables. The human performance indicators, the HPI. I thought, okay, let's focus on internal attribution. That meaning, what makes a good member of staff, do you think? What makes someone good at what they do? What are some of the attributes good people in staff have? Well, they're enthusiastic, they're motivated, they've got compassion, and all these attributes. I thought, okay, you get the staff on a scale of 1 to 10% being high, as good as they can do, and they're going in there with so much energy. It's a little bit like years ago when I used to work in care homes, delivering education. And one time I was leading some training, I was leading some CBT techniques to the care staff, and one member of staff, said to me, well, how do you expect us to sort of, because my standards are really, really high. I really cared a lot for the young people I was working with, and the point being is that, he said, well, how do you expect us to do that on the wage we're on? I said, well, that's something I can't control. I need to live with this. But I said to him, the person, in uncertain terms, I said, well, what if that was your child in care? How would you want them treated? God forbid something just happened to you. Think about it that way. Okay, obviously you're not getting paid your worth. I accept that. I can't control that. But what you can do is habits die hard, so to speak. So if you go after this, it's really important. So the point being in business, okay, focus on HPI, enthusiasm, gratitude for the customer, but not obviously to the point where you become the doormat, and obviously, this sort of customer's always right thing. It is to a point, but I would never want my staff to be treated or spoken to in a way that's condescending and uncalled for. Because certainly in therapy, the customer's not always right. I don't tell people what they want to hear, tell them what they need to hear. If they don't like it, they can do one, as far as I'm concerned. Because the bottom line is that, you do the best you can. It's not about winning friends and influencing people. It's about being legitimate, being honest, the best you can. So the staff I mentioned, they've gone on and achieved wonderful things beyond the person's imagination. That was my introduction to business. And through my career in business, There was never a question mark about what I could do, a lot of experience, but where I was sort of failing a lot was, we go back to here, I was really passionate about what I did, and still am now, I love what I did, to the point where, you know, I would pretty much do it for nothing if I didn't have to worry about bills and stuff like that. But the point being, I wrote this, and I'm not trying to tout for it, and I wrote this to sort of talk about the pitfalls around business, because you can be the best in all what you do, and I'm not sort of claiming to be the best at what I did, but the point being is that you still end up struggling. I'm going to talk about that, because I still struggled. I was getting big results for people. I was the sort of person who, if a professional footballer come to see me, who was being paid a lot of money, because I'd worked with them in the past when they were younger, and almost like a maternal instinct, I'd be like, you know what, never mind paying me for it type thing. And I realised that actually, you know what, you've got to know your worth, because otherwise you're going to struggle. And it's hard as a therapist, because no one goes in this business, I would think, from a financial point of view. I didn't go into it financially. I used to work in football, and money was pretty reasonable there, and I had a fulfilling career. I went into it because that's what it was for me. It gave me meaning, existentially. I thought, this is great, I can do things that I really want to do. I love football, love sport, but I thought I want to test myself and challenge myself in other areas. And I did. And the point being is that think of what you like to do, what you love to do, your passion, why you want to do what you do, or why you do what you do. What's your motivation for doing it? That's really important. We're going to sort of think about it as we go along. You know, you've got this one life that we know of in this genetic form. So think, okay, what motivates me? Why do I do what I do? And that's sort of the creation there. I've written a number of books, and that was one of the things I had the vision to do. And I say that because, you know, I've written many resource manuals too, over the years as well. But, you know, I say that because one of the reasons for writing them was because I enjoy to write. Okay? And I found very early on I had an ability to write really well, even though, ironically, I wasn't academic at school. I was not academic at all, because we had a lot of family issues, and my mum got really bad. Well, mum was really ill. Dad was teachers at work when I was 15, and meant me going up to help the family. As you do, you know, you've got to do these things. So I'm working in the factory, I'm going to school, I'm really struggling with my grades. And no teachers really checked up to see if I was okay. You know, you turn up to school on Monday morning, you're shattered, they don't sort of see what was wrong. And that was one of my motivations for going into schools now, because, you know, if you sort of see a young person not eating or malnourished, then you've got to be switched on, in my opinion. And for me, you know, all I would do is put more pressure. You're not doing work, you're not doing this. So the irony was that when I started to write, the irony was that you know, it was a struggle in the beginning to do things grammatically right, to do things in the way. But you know, you put your head down, you learn, and you know, I think sometimes the motivation is when people sort of criticise you too, because you're out there. You know, probably notice a lot of articles will say, you know, the articles you write, you're not concerned. No, because you go with your intent. So think about your intent. So my intention when I write, if someone reads it, their life improves even a little bit, I've done my job. Even if other people say, you know, it's whatever, then so be it. So, you know, people criticise you. I worked on radio. This is many, many years ago. I had a radio career that stems a long time. This is way back, you know, back in the short hair. I might probably have a period of short hair, about 2 or 3 years. It wasn't me, so I thought, sod this, as you do. But, you know, the guy there, Andy, gave me a chance. He's probably watching now, one of the most famous broadcasters in Australia. He gave me a chance when no one else would. And I actually took a course, hired a coach, and at the end of it, I said, I'm ready to go now. And she says to me, you're not going to make it in radio. Don't bother. I said, why is that? She goes, you don't articulate yourself very well. I said, I wish you told me that before I paid the money to go on the course. But she had a point, I suppose. I don't know. But we took that show to number 1. It was great. Football at 5. And I've had a radio for many, many years. And you probably hear me now in Salford. I've come back to radio a year ago. So I'm still going strong. And I have a joke about that. Because it goes to show, you know, that even the experts are wrong. Okay, not everyone's always right. I've been academic as well. I mentioned I wasn't academic at school. The first time I went to university was in this is not laughing by the way, but my first university was sports performance conditioning. It was a course for athletes. It was a modular course. I was 23. They let me on. I don't know how I got on, to be fair, but they called me mature age student. I don't know what Dan called me now, and they gave me a taste of academia. So that's where my academic career begins. I was really embarrassed when I first started, because that was back in those really big computers, that, you know, horrible computers that were really, really, you know, easier to work than these ones, by the way. But the point being is that I was embarrassed I didn't even know the alphabet. And I said to George, who was a lecturer, George Gumby, who was actually a famous coach, he was Sebastian Coe's coach, I believe, conditioning coach. You can Google it, and he was an amazing man. And he said, you've done the hard yards, you've got yourself here, you're competing, you're out there, just put your head down. And I had to go and learn and do night school and learn properly, because a lot of things I didn't know, doing these dissertations, and that gave me a taste of things. And then obviously I'd go on and learn and study at Bolton, Liverpool, King's, and I'm back at King's again now. All these prestigious universities that probably would have laughed if I had applied after school, because I got one of the worst mark you could get upon graduating school. I think they gave me a mark because they felt sorry for me. But I've had great mentors. Hypnosis has been a big part of my life, as you're probably well aware. I'm very lucky they're one of the greatest mentors I could ever wish for. I mentioned Jeff a lot. Zyke, who took on the Erickson Foundation, has been instrumental in my development over many, many years. Milton Erickson, I never got to meet him, but I think Jeff's, in my opinion, the next best thing, and he's been a big learning in me to show. So, football for me, I was there for a while. Why did I leave? I got asked the question a lot. Well, I won a lot of things in the game, and I left because I felt it was time to move on and do different things. But I'm back now again, as you sort of see in the headlines, but I'm doing the things on a consultancy level. I didn't want to be locked down for one club. I'd done that, and I could have gone, I reckon, in a lot of people's opinion, to the highest level I wanted to, but I felt that there was a bigger picture for me, a bigger path. I wasn't on a crusade, it wasn't a midlife crisis like people say, it was just I felt there's something out there. And it's really, really testing, and one of the reasons we're doing this seminar here is the reason I'm passionate about the seminar that I'm doing is because I know what it's like, and I'm going to speak about that, to be in a situation where it's hard to run a business. It really is tough, and it was really, really tough for me to run a business, to think like a business, because I just enjoyed what I was doing so much. Okay, it's really, really tough, and I think there's a place for getting around people who support your dreams and vice versa. I talk about Toastmasters. People think I'm on commission, the speaking association. I'm not. I don't get anything from them. And the reason I'm very fond of them is because I've always been an introvert character, never been an extrovert. And I think sometimes when people hire people, they sort of go too much on psychometric, and they miss out on quality, because you sort of see someone and think, okay, I'm a quiet person when I'm sort of, and quite private person in some respects. And I think the point being is that there's many introverts who are good lecturers, great lecturers, but they prefer to research, but then they share the information. So same again, I did a course to be a speaker, and ironically, there's a recurring theme there. The person at the end of it who sort of coached me, more like a coaching thing, said at the end of it, you're not going to make it as a speaker. And to be fair, she was probably justified. The first talk I did about 20 years ago, it was a humiliation. Because I could compete as an athlete, I could do music, I had no problem, because I felt people were away from me. But put me in a room with people like this, it felt really intimate. Maybe it was the schemas opening up from the days of school. But the worry for me was, on the first talk I did, it went horrible. It was a disaster. It couldn't have gone any worse. It really couldn't. Everything just sort of, it was back in the day without all this sort of stuff, I couldn't even hide behind, there's nothing you could do. The second talk I wish went best, but it didn't. It was even worse. Everyone was like, messing about, and it wasn't happening. And I thought maybe it's time to give up. And that's the irony. Sometimes people I don't think they realise, maybe they did realise, and if they did realise, it's a travesty to think that people are like that, because I prepared so hard for it, and there were people in there that were sort of mocking what I had to say. That was my life work up to that point. I was in my 20s and, travelling around. I just wanted to share what I'd learned so far, because I'd, learned about NLP very young, and I've learned about other things. And I wanted to share what I had, and I had all the right intentions. You got people in there. It was a corporate arena that was quite unforgiving, and I thought it was quite cruel, because the way I was not necessarily brought up, the way I am as a person, you try and support people and get behind people, encourage them. But they didn't realise that for me, I'd spent the best part of 10, 15 years training as an athlete and studying where I could, do what I could, and I was there. And it deflates you. So I joined a group then, a speaking group then. I got around people who wanted the best of me and vice versa. I rejoined a few years ago, and the reason being is I felt I needed to get some new ideas. Not to change your style. I realised just be yourself, just like you are, and you'll be okay. So I do speak a lot. Ironically, I've spoken the last 15, 20 years, all over really, to big audiences around the world. I speak at all the big conferences, New York, in Australia, in London as well. Everywhere you can think of, I get to speak. And I love speaking, not so much because I get the buzz from conveying information. not to convince anybody. You just, okay, this is what I've learnt. Here you go. It's your call. You know what you do with it. So I'm not here to convince anybody of anything, and that's been the way I sort of have worked. And that gives you a bit of insight into where I am. And I want you to think for a moment, you know, again, what your passion is, what you love to do. And I think if you love what you do, you got meaning from it, you'll be okay in the end. You know, it's not nice when you turn up and nobody turns up to a talk, or you know someone heckles you in the back or whatever really, and it's like when I was doing a talk even 2-3 years ago, I was speaking for an organisation. It was like a full house in London, and I just travelled back from speaking in Australia and the Far East, and the flights were delayed, I had jet lag, I was all sorts really, and the room was overbooked, and people who turned up were like very young. Not there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of them were there pretty much to probably to chat each other up. Hopefully no one's here for that this evening, but the point being is the organisation I was speaking about changed dramatically, and they were sort of heckling away and that sort of stuff, and someone said to me, you handle it well. I said, well, the reality is that, I suppose one of the best things for me is the experience I've had in life. I know what it's like to be and struggle. It's not easy. Many years ago when I worked in the States for doing some coaching out there, I come back to London in the early 20s, and basically the money I was due to be paid from working out in London, in America, they didn't bother paying me for whatever reason, so they shortchanged me. I come back to London. I got a job working for a guy who was a fitness coach at Crystal Palace Football Club. He goes, join me if you want, with his personal training centre, the first, I think it was, he said, in the country of Europe. All these athletes he had, all these sort of famous people going through the door. He goes, help me at the club if you want. I started working with him, and ironically when I got back from the States to work with him, I didn't pay. I was too proud to ask anyone for anything. I struggled. The first time I struggled big time. I don't come from a wealthy family. We sort of as poor as you can be in modern society. And ironically, the first month I struggled to get over the line. That first month he gave me a check, back in the check for the work I did. I banked it and the damn thing bounced because it was an issue. I thought I waited so long. So it's tough, I was literally living just wherever I could. And I had to face every day. We talk about game head on. I was like, roughing it wherever I could, and then you've got to get up in the morning and sort of motivate other people. People are very affluent, top footballers, stars, celebrities, and you've got to sort of put a brave face on. I'm not thinking, I'm hardly eating here. I'm not doing anything. And it's tough, and these are lessons that teach you in that respect. So I think sometimes, if you've got children of your own, I want to tell you to bring your children up. I'm not an expert, by the way, but it's good to teach them some lessons, of a hardship. And so that's why I'm sometimes, especially in sport. I never let my kids win in sport. The reason being is that, it's an issue I've got more than that, but, if you give things away too easy, it's not a good thing, in that respect anyway. I know it's hard because obviously, you want the best for them, but I think some of these lessons, I'm not saying kick it out on the street, although you probably might feel like sometimes, but the point being is that, if you're firm with them, it's okay, you've got to earn it. It doesn't do any harm. I look back on my own life, and I wouldn't wish some of the struggles on anybody, but it's not a bad thing, and that's sort of brought into business, in my respect. I don't have all the answers, but, when I speak in schools, you've got to have a business model. I still speak now. There are times when I speak in schools that, they don't, and I'm open about this, and the reason I'm open about it, people ask me, sometimes I'll go and do a talk and I won't charge for the talk, and the reason being is that's part of my mission. But that's not because I'm a crusader or a good person, it's because it's important to me. And I do a lot of corporate work too. And this is important to me because I've been where some of these young people are. And that was one of my motivations when I do the talk, and sometimes it's more of a hassle to get whatever payment they've got on offer, because you've got to go through this sort of red tape thing. I'm not saying everyone should do that, because I know some people who go in there and get paid a lot for doing it. For me, I kind of think if the young person sitting there gets something out of it, like I did when we had a speaker when I was a young person, it's job done. I can sort of think I've left a little bit of a legacy behind. So you want to sort of a sliding scale, I think. I'm going to talk about for the work you do, if that makes sense. And I'm open about that. I have a corporate price, and sometimes corporations say, why do you do that? It's because I didn't set my business up to work in corporation, but I do enjoy doing it. I did it initially to help people who actually are trying to improve themselves in whichever way I can help, and I don't want to isolate that. I would never left football if that was the case. So I have no issue saying, well, you know, if you're a corporation, that's what you pay. If you're self-funding, that's what you pay. And if people have a problem with that, it's their issue, not mine. That's the way it's going to be. Because I think corporations, you know, they generate big revenue. They've got training budgets, you know. And I think, in my opinion, sometimes the corporations, people, when you get hired to come in there, they don't generally appreciate as much. When you've got people who come to see you, they take time out of their own life. On a Saturday, Sunday, they come to the session, they hang on every word you say, and it's phenomenal, you know. But sometimes you go in, you get hired by a corporation, you go in there, and it's like, well, you know, when do we get the certificate? When do we get this? And I'm like, you know, hang on a second here. You know, I've been studying for like 20-something years. You know, the important things to do, but action's key. I want to think about taking action as well, going forward. You know, what I want to say as well is the facts. We're going to a lot more practicality in the second half, by the way. But the facts are, I want to put the reality, because you go to these motivational seminars, sometimes they tell you, you know what, you get all pumped up and you can do it, this, that, and the other. It's not always easy. Stress is not good. You know, you can see there, every person, we all work harder than our work. I can guarantee you. Most people do. A lot of hours. Life can be pretty stressful at times. So, you know, and think about what you want for your career. And we're going to do an exercise after the break as well. Think about something that you want from your career. You know, make a difference. What you want from the job, what you want from what you're doing. What's important to you. And maybe aim for 10, and you can't think of 10 now. You can reflect back on the DVD and maybe come back and think, okay, 10 things that you want to do. That's what I did when I set my business up. 10 things I was wanting to do in terms of going forward. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I thought if I can sort of use that as a navigation, I'll be okay. I should be okay, you know. So, you know, and you have a look at what you write, and then you can sort of like see and start listing your values, and you can do it afterwards. I've got videos on the internet about values dissertation. It's about getting into line with your values. You look at the list, and then you sort of think, if I had to have one thing today as a priority going into a job, what would it be? You know, and you start thinking values. If the values aren't clear, so for example, if you've got a value, tidy desk, you might ask yourself, well, what does that mean to you? It's like being organised. But your values are your drivers. So the more in a line you are with values, the more chance you've got of having a fulfilling career, even when the chips are tough. You know, there was a time when I sort of stepped away from professional football as a coach, and I got invited to Manchester United, to my colleague who was working at the time. I think he still works there now. We're very, very close. We worked together at Blackburn Rovers Football Club. I did sessions for him there, and he invited me to come to United to sort of, you know, bounce a few ideas. And here I was, I've not long left the job. I was in football, and business wasn't going very well. I'm honest about that. And not because I wasn't doing great work, because I'm going to talk about afterwards, the cash flow wasn't great. I wasn't collecting the money, I was sort of all over the place. And I turned up in a car that I'd bought for about £200, and it was just falling apart. It really was. And I was park it outside the training ground, like a mile away, so no one can see it. I didn't. I thought I'd get close to the ground. I drove through the gates of United, and there's like, you know, it's like a car showroom, you know. And here's me in this banger that's going to fall apart. And ironically, the coach came and greeted me. I thought, why of all the times would you come? And I thought, this is embarrassing, blank smoke, falling apart. And I think he looked at me out of pity, thinking, what is this guy doing? Because the next day after we had our meeting and our tour, I get a call off him saying, I've got someone who can offer you some work if you want it. I thought it's some sort of insult. Someone ran a coaching company, a big coaching company in Liverpool, by the way. You guys have a meeting with him. He's got a load of work out there. And I thought, you know, and I spoke to this guy. I had a meeting with him. He told me about his company. He said that we could use someone who's got your experience and blah, blah, blah. And I was tempted to take this position and just give it all in, thinking, what am I doing? You know, I'm chasing invoices. I'm all over the place. And at that point there, I'm driving the car, and this sort of banger breaks down in the motorway. It was January. It was throwing rain. I had to walk on the motorway. I couldn't afford the breakdown. So, you know, those sort of cars that come and pick the car up if it's a hindrance, and actually sent me a bill too for doing it. I said, you know what, just scrap the damn thing. I found the way to get off the motorway. I got on the train. I thought overnight, I just didn't sleep. I thought, what am I doing? What on earth am I doing? You know, what is all this about? You don't really care so much for yourself at that point. You think about your family, your kids, and you think that sort of stuff. What am I going to do? You know, what's going to happen here? But I woke up in the morning and I phoned up the organisation. I'm okay as I am, because I was aligned with my values. I knew I could make it work. I knew what I was doing, and I was very clear about what my values are. Okay? And I've got a coach as well. Every year I hire a coach, and I go through my values and goals. Because for me, you have a 10-year goal, but you reevaluate every 6 months to 12 months. It's not carved in stone. If you don't want to do something no more, then you can phase it out. But for me, your values are quite useful. That's sort of brushing over how to do the exercise. I'm not trying to sell you anything on values. There's plenty of information on the internet. I've got some myself. I've got templates you can use, but work out your values. If you're true to them, you're on the way. But bearing in mind that values are quite abstract in the sense that, a lot of companies use them now. And I was consulting the Air Force one time, doing some courses for them, and one of the values they had, I think, if my memory serves me correct, was integrity. And see, some of these companies, they put these values on their wall, but they mean different things to different people. So I said to the group I was teaching in the Air Force, I said, well, do you all behave with integrity? And they said, yeah, we do. And I said, well, write down what it means to you. Do you think they all had the same answer? Did they, heck? See, and that's where a lot of conflicts happen. Because, people like to have these values and take pride in them, but the problem is, no one knows what they mean. So it's about the map of the world. Everyone's got their own. When you do your values, just make sure that you're sort of clear on what they mean to you. Another story for another day, but, and also from a selling point of view, the danger is that you sell on your own values. And this is congruent, because you could have the best product in the world, it won't sell if it's not marketed, okay? There's some rubbish out there that sells, and the reason why it sells is because of the marketing behind it. So be mindful about the person's values that you're selling to. And that's congruent, because if it's not win-win, there's no point. So I always ask people, before they book in the course, you never done the course with me, I ask, what do you want? Because I want to fulfill your expectations, but also, you'll know I'm not afraid to say, I'm not for you. Sometimes people are amazed. You talk to yourself out a few £1,000 business, I don't care. I'll do something else. I can lecture. I can do many things. I'm resourceful. I'll get by. I'll drive a taxi to get by. I don't give a damn. That's not disrespectful to them, because people do work. I worked in factories and done all sorts of jobs. But there's no point, I think, making money in a way that isn't aligned with yourself. And part of the reason why I've walked away from some organisations in the past is that they weren't doing things the way I thought they should be done. I'm not, the person to. I'm trying to be self-righteous. I'm just saying in accordance to your own values. But the point being, you can list your own values, what they mean to you, but know your customers. Okay, take a moment to write down who are your customers. Now, who are they? Who is clear in the room about who their customers are? Anybody clear about who their customers are? Who's sort of clear about who their clients are, could be? It's not easy, is it? Not easy. Okay, it's not an easy, but know who they are. Be very clear about that. Who's your niche, if you want to call it that, and you can expand your niche, if you want to call it a niche. And so it could be, okay, I'm going to do weight reduction, smoking cessation. I'm going to work in an expert area for me. But the point of being is that you know who they are, and you're okay, because you're not going to be for everybody. I'm not for everybody. It's okay. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. But I'm not going to have a lot of people, and you set your stall out, and that's the idea behind it. There's 7 billion people in the world, a lot of people. You find the people that you're best serving. But I want you to sort of think about that and sort of go back over again. You know the slides if you want to, and basically identify who your customers are, or clients, or whatever you want to call them. It's your call. Whatever you think is most comfortable for you. Call. I use customers because it's just generic in that respect. But know your customers, okay? Because you can end up doing what I did in the beginning. Going to all these networking groups and just wasting my damn time. Not a waste of time, but because nothing's a waste of time in that respect. But you go into places that you're not getting anywhere. I go to these networking groups and I pay whatever I had to pay to go there. I soon realised that what am I doing there? There's people who are employed by companies who are sent out of the room for a few hours because the boss probably wants to get rid of them. That's not being disrespectful, but the boss wants them, to get them out of the office for a few hours. And then there's nothing. They didn't make a decision. They didn't respect anything I would do anyway. I'm like, what am I doing there? You know, it's 2 hours of my life where time is of the essence. You know, I'm not there to socialise. My goal is to help people, and the way I'm going to do that is to sort of get into the right places and see the right people. So, you know, you choose your time wisely. Okay, think about what your customer or the client what's the problem they want solved the most. Okay, what do they want solved? What is it that they're looking for you to solve for them? Not that, you know, the best person to help themselves is themselves. Okay, but equally in saying that, what do they want solved? Okay, so it could be you're an expert in weight reduction. It could be you're an expert in smoke cessation. It could be that you're a behavioural expert. It could be you've got a product that helps them to be able to improve their life. Okay, what do they want solved is a really useful question to ask. You know, what's keeping them awake at night? Okay, and you might think, oh no, you know, it's congruent, because if you've got the answer, someone else will do it if you don't do it. Someone not as good as you will take the work that you could get even. I've seen it before. Some of these people you go to, they're not even that great at what they do. You see them. I've been to many motivational speakers and seminars, and I'm not being disrespectful. Nothing I wouldn't say to them. They're not, quite often the ones who are up there aren't always the best at what they do anyway. I don't know if you've ever heard of that sort of Dunning-Kruger. There's two psychologists, the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if it's true or not, but they did this research where it's the people who aren't that great at what they do think of themselves as better. The ones who are good at what they do dismiss themselves. I don't know if there's truth in that, but it's a scientific thing. So, you know, back yourself. How can you show the customers? Okay, what ways can you do it? Now you've got the internet. You can do streams, you can do videos, you can do talks, you know. It's like people say to me sometimes, you stream some of your stuff. I'm not comfortable streaming because I'm more of an introverted person. I don't like the cameras on me. I work on radio. I really enjoy it, but I never listen back to my shows again because the sound of my own voice is enough to, you know. But the point being is that, okay, you've got to sometimes step out of the comfort zone. Not jump, single swing, but extend it. But the point being is that, it's, you know, people say sometimes they will never stream, but I'm like, well, you know, the information I'm conveying, I'm confident in what I've got to offer. Yeah, I'll put it out there, you know. I spend a lot of time studying, so, and that's the sort of thing, believe in your own ability. That's the whole point, you know, you should do. And it's life is like that, really, isn't it? I think I soon realised that, you know, when I was working in a factory as a 15, 16-year-old, no disrespect to people working in factories, some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, salt of the earth people. For 15, 16-year-olds to work at 12 hours a day wasn't a good thing. And that's where I was. And I learned a lot at that point. And what I learned is that there were people there that, you know, when I said to my friend, I said, I can't do this no more, man. There's got to be something else out for me somewhere. He goes, you're mad. You've got no chance. With friends like that, who needs enemies. And that's the sort of environment I grew up in some respect. It was like, you know, a production line. And the job I had wasn't great. It was dusty. I had asthma anyway as a child, and it wasn't a good environment to be in. It wasn't good in that respect. It was tough, you know. You got on with it, and people have been there for many, many years. And that's the way you've been treated as well. You know, you work really, really hard. People come up to you, threaten you. You know your job. You know you're going to get fired, and I'm like, wow, you know, I'm barely getting paid minimum wage here, and I've got this pressure on me. You know, and on top of that, I've got pressure at home. Well, this is not good. Surely, and that's not saying that, you know, obviously it's important that we've got people who work in every sector, not undermining people in that respect. I'm just saying if you want to do something different than that, then look at options, you know, out there as well. And that's the sort of, I soon realised that, you know, people sort of do enough. Okay, I gave the work I did in that environment my best shot. I earned my corn. You know, there's no messing about. You know, you get on with things as you do. You know, you got to find out what motivates you. You know, how many of those you, from a professional point of view, what motivates you is key. So, what is your driver? What is your why? You hear all these motivational gurus. I'm not one of them, by the way. I'm a demotivational guru, not motivational guru. But
they all talk about your why, and there's a point, I listen to them too. I listen to the people like Tony Robbins. I've been to see Tony Robbins as a 17-year-old, seen him many times. I've, listened to Eric Thomas's as well. Look, they make sense, but in my opinion, some of them are just like half-truths because no one can live your life for you. All the motivational stuff I heard when I was struggling was tough. Because, when you get phoned up by, I'm not talking about having a plan after the break, when you get a call by the gas bill, the electric bill, you can't tell them I'm just embarking on a dream. They don't give a damn, and try a council tax, you don't pay that, you don't have anything, or HMRC, so, and so we should pay, obviously, to the point that we contribute when we can, and ironically, it's people who do pay, fair enough, no issue with that, but I'm just saying that you can't use the half-truths that you learnt on the motivational seminar to say, actually, you know what, can I just have a weekly shop for free? It doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. So for me, a lot of the work I do is backed by science. I work in science and try and strategize and think clearly in that respect because, it's a tough, unforgiving world sometimes. It really is, it can be really tough and, there's a sort of model that's quite useful to use is sort of to assess situation. I'm going to touch in the next 10 minutes or so before we break and come back with the practical stuff, but the situation you're in, have a think about your thoughts, your feelings, behaviour and physical, so it's all meshed in. So it's a bit of a modification here of the ABC model in CBT. I've put it into business and it's quite useful because you kind of start to think of your beliefs. Your beliefs around money, your beliefs around work, your beliefs around business. It's really useful stuff, to see how you're appraising situations in life, to explore your beliefs. Belief is a big thing. And I talk about that why is a huge thing. But I think about some of the beliefs that you have that you think might limit you. I had some beliefs, I'm open about that, about money. I felt I had to charge for what I did. I just felt I love what I did so much that I didn't always feel comfortable. That's why I would sort of say to, young lad who'd come to see me from a football point of view to do a session after set up on my own. Even though they were making a lot of money themselves, I'd be like, you know what, never mind. But the reality was they didn't know that, I was struggling financially. They didn't know that I was chasing invoices from companies. I'd done the work. Man, I delivered training for companies and I was chasing invoices up for God knows how long. And that's wrong. If you are at a big company, what I would say is that it really is tough for people who are going in there, and especially when the work you do is good too. I work for a company and they got some great results, and I'm generally quite calm, as you do, and this company, even after months, they're just messing me about. I phone them up, well, the invoice not paid, polite, this, that, and the other. And I said to the secretary, I said, I've got nothing against you, but I want to speak to the director now, because this has gone on for too long. I've got people to pay. I pay them out of my own pocket, and I'm struggling because I don't want people doing work for me for nothing, but I'm sort of struggling now. And I had a go at the director of the company, and he goes, do you want to work for us no more? I said, I don't give a damn, man. Horrible person, because the reality is, you're making the money, man. You're a huge corporation, you're big, you lord your profits, but and the thing is, they know if you're a small business, you're hardly going to take them to court, because, who's going to got the money to do that? And that's the thing I want to talk about after the break too. You've got to watch that, And I'm sure this is my conspiracy. I'm a conspiracy theorist too. I think I've got a conspiracy. Sometimes I think, if you go bust and you won't ask for nothing anyway, it's not good. There's a big corporation out there. It's not good, to be that way. But be wary of that living training, because sometimes it happens. So all these beliefs, think about what limit you. I thought that, I'm an honest, genuine person, and I thought everyone played ball in the same way. I soon realised it wasn't the case, but that's okay. I don't speak to people's levels and fight dirty, but the bottom line is that, people might take your generosity as a sign of weakness. That's when you've got to be assertive and put the foot down, especially for agreeable people. Agreeable people don't like to argue. I don't like to argue. Assertiveness doesn't come natural to me, but there are times you've got to be, and that's the sort of key around beliefs. It's a really big thing. And they're ones that empower you. For me, the empowering belief, I felt that, I know what I'm doing. I've got enough information to know, I've studied for long enough, I know I'm doing okay. I believe that as long as I kept going, that I'd get things okay. Things should be okay. So I think the beliefs that work for you, it's empowering beliefs, okay? And the ones that energize you, the ones that really get you going, the beliefs that sort of you get energy from, you draw energy from. The belief that you can change your life. For me, it was a big belief. I thought, well, there's a knock-on effect. If one person's life changes, there's a big effect in a town. Even in one town of 150,000 people, if one person changes, it can be a big, big thing. It really can. When I did the work at the airport, delivering level 5 coaching and mentoring, I was asked by the college, I won't name the college name, but they asked me, it was a college based in Manchester, can you deliver it? Because I think I was struggling to get someone with my experience to deliver it. And it was a nice thing because we sort of had the airport staff mentoring students who were not in education employment, and it changed lives. It really did. Some of the young people who generation upon generation who haven't worked, some actually got jobs at the end of it. And that's not a big thing for a lot of people, but the point being is that you change your life. Then they maybe have kids one day and they change their life. That's a big knock-on effect. It really does have a big knock-on effect. It builds the self-esteem. So I sort of believe that, my empowering belief was that, you're a day away from, negative but also positive too. So the empowering beliefs, you might not see the change, but people, they like what you do. If you can make a difference. I suppose like a word, the belief, when you express it through language, it's like a table, a label for an object you've stored over time. With enough repetition, you associate one sound with the other. So think about the way people speak language. They'll tell you in a narrative what the distortions are. When a person starts to defend some generalization, like this will never happen for me, not for me, this, that, and the other, it's a practical belief equals direction in the behaviour. So behind the belief is a behaviour, and that is transformed from thought into self-preserved belief. So you've got social conditioning. In some respects, some of the young people I was working with at that point, there was a lot of social conditioning. There's no jobs for us, there's no this, that, and the other. And the reality is that, I'm not saying it was easy at the time, it was a recession, but equally in saying that, there's still abundance of opportunity out there. We live in a great country, there's opportunity out there for people. If you're willing to work hard, there's a pathway. Not perfect, nowhere is, but you've got a chance. You've got a chance. A lot of places in the world, you don't have that chance. So, that was the message I tried to get across to the young people I was working with. It's not perfect by any stretch, but don't resign yourself. Be wary of some things that people put into your head about what you can do, because people do it. And the audacity, some people will say, well, it's all right for you, easy for you, not knowing anything about my life. It's all right for you, it's all right for you. I said, well, what do you know about being all right for me? And how many people, and a teacher one time, I was doing that program, said to me, yeah, you've worked in professional sport. The actual teacher said to me, as part of this program, said, why are you telling them the belief? And I said, well, what do you mean? Why are you telling them they can do? I didn't say they can do everything they want to do. I'm not idealistic, I'm not airy-fairy. I'm saying you apply yourself, you can achieve good things. You can be the person who holds a job down. You can be the person who sets up a business as a plasterer. You can be the person who, is a respectable person in the community. I'm not suggesting everyone's going to go on and be, a superstar athlete, whatever. But equally, what annoyed me about the teacher was the fact that he said, well, you're telling them this, but, you just come from a career in professional sport, and blah, blah, blah. I said to him straight, I said, look, how many of these young people, I'm interested to know, worked in a factory at 15 and lived on the bread line, faced addiction? None of them. So, the reality is that I understand young people are under pressure these days. They are. But so was my generation. It might have been different, but it was still pressure. When you come home from work one day and you're told there's no money for anything, and you're living on bread, and the generation before me, some of them before me, they're fighting at 17. So, the reality is it's different pressure. But I don't like that philosophy that, people say that, okay, make excuses for people, allowances. Look, pressure existed, always existed. I know from my experience, and I said to the teacher straight and the young people, it wasn't nice coming from home and sort of going to work afterwards, after school.
and doing a shift and going back in the morning. That's a lot of pressure on a young person's shoulders. So sometimes the danger is you sort of make assumptions about people, and I don't do these days. You know, I understand that they had challenges. A lot of them do, we all do, but the reality is you can make excuses for yourself and things become unhelpful. And I sort of, before we break, to give an example, you know, these schemas over time. To cut a long story short, the example I use for schemas, it's like if we're walking through a park and you had a dog like this as a 5-year-old, was your best friend and very loving, and your friend got bitten on the leg by this type of dog as a 5-year-old and one had no experience, would your reaction all be different based on seeing the same, not the same dog 20 years ago, would be passed away after 20 years, but the same type, different response, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The one that had a loving experience would, so, and that's the schema you run. But you know, life being idiosyncratic in the sense that we've got our reality. You know, we sort of project our reality, and that's the sort of danger. It can be useful because it's a lot of effort for the brain from a metabolic point of view to think differently, but equally sometimes things prevail, they need to sort of break through. Because you can be a victim of the winner. And the story I use between victim and winner is the story I've used before, is that when I worked in football, the level I was working at was like, I think it was League 2 at the time. But anyway, long story short, and we were playing a team in the Premier League, the highest league, the highest tier in football in this country, and we were like, you know, a few tiers down. And it was ironic really because I get a call off the manager at like midnight and he says to me, he goes, I can't believe it. You know, we're playing this team tomorrow and we've got injuries and illnesses and suspensions and we're going to play to young people and, you know, really, you know, doom-mongering in that respect. And he was right. It was a shame because we had this sort of flu that had gone through the team and we had injuries and illnesses. And I said to him, you know what, call me back in half an hour because we'll be asleep. I said, well, that's the idea. But I said, call me back and, you know, these late night conversations that you do in sport. And he calls back later on and says, you know what, I've had to think about and I know what you're getting at. We're playing, we've got nothing to lose. The pressure's all on them. We're playing the young kids. I don't know what's politically correct these days. I'm allowed to say young kids. The young players anyway. And we're playing the young players. The pressure's all on them. I'm going to go and enjoy it. You know, just enjoy the experience. They may never get this chance again. You see the difference? And see how empowering it is? Well, actually, one of the game, ironically, not putting up the conversation, but if you're, one thing about teaching, by the way, what's really important, there's scientific evidence around this, that what you believe about the people that you're teaching has a big impact on the way they perform. Scientific evidence. It's, I suppose, a bit Carl Jungian, perception is projection. So if you believe in the young people, or any age for that matter, you know, if you believe in people, has a big impact. And you think that all the teachers have inspired you and trainers and coaches, it's that belief. And I'm not saying, you know, belief in the sense that, you know, there's a fine line. Maybe you might not believe someone can do something and that might be an idea to say, well, go off and maybe work with somebody else. I'd be truth be told, there are times I work with people who I may not believe they could do what they wanted to do. And I said, I'm not the best person for you. You know, but the point being is that if you're going to, you know, work with somebody, like I did when I worked in care homes, I said, let's do GCSE rather than NASDAQ. Everyone said, you know, you're mad, you're putting pressure on them. I thought, well, they're going to do education anyway, they might as well do it. No one pulled up trees, there was no A's, anything like that, but they got through. Okay? In sport as well, we've punched above our weight. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, you know, backing people. You know? And the thing is, if you get them on your side and they buy into it, then they really want to do well, you know. For me, it's more important they do well for themselves. You know, like I tell the people I work with now in sport, it's more for them. You know, my career sort of, you know, I've been doing what I've done for a long time. You know, it's like one of them really. It's part of the reason why, you know, I'm also affiliated with other organisations now, and I help organise events and that sort of stuff. And you know, I made my way back into psychology, and the reason being is that, you know, I enjoy it. I love the area, but also I like to sort of like, you know, do my little part to keep the legacy going and hear variable people. You know, not just sing by one hymn sheet. There's no panacea in therapy. There's no one model that works for everybody. Okay, the idea is that people have their say, and then you decide, you know, what's right for you. You know, I'm not really one of them that sort of likes people who think they've got all the answers. None of us do. You know, all we can do is share and best practice and go from there. So what I want to do after the break is do some practical stuff. A bit of a break, and we're going to look at, like, you know, how we can overcome, how we can sort of ally ourselves with stress and pressure
Because when you think about the brain, and we're going to go into more detail around the brain, and sort of start disconnecting some of these patterns we've got, start empowering ourselves. Think about the brain. Your brain's evolved, for millions of years, and people try and change things. I think it's more managing that primal part of the brain. So look at how we can do that for things like mindfulness and so on and so forth. And we'll look at some of the realities of being in business. The statistics about how many businesses do fail, the reality, not airy fairy, and I think what some of the things to do, what it takes to do and stand the best possible chance. So is that okay if we break for 10 minutes? Is that okay for everybody? And then we're just going to get practical. You don't have a pen and paper, let me know, I'll go get one for you from somewhere.
I've got some paper
Yeah.
and camera and get
Oh, no, I think there's some in here, some notebooks and that. Yes, yeah. So we'll
Okay.
find some notebooks and that, because we're going to be really, really practical and go from there. And like I said before, you can have the slide afterwards if you want to. The first part was streamed anyway. You can go over it again, whatever, and we'll go from there. So 10 minutes, okay for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. So I make it 5 past, is it 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no worries, yeah. I've got the clock in my hand. Yeah.